Welcome to episode 20 of the Soulful Menopause podcast. Today's episode is all about fat and why it's absolutely vital that you include the right fat in your diet from perimenopause on. Welcome to the Soulful Menopause podcast. Discover how to transform the chaos of menopause into vibrant health and a soulful life you'll love. I'm Sally Love, natural nutritionist and soul wisdom coach. I want you to experience a soulful menopause that'll guide you into the best years of your life. Hey there, Fire Moon Goddess! So we're going to be talking about fat today. Now, we're all going to be around the same age, so I'm sure you're going to remember that fat-free craze that began in the 80s. Oh my word, that was so damaging, but we really didn't know it at the time. You know, do you remember that everything was being labelled as fat-free? No matter where you looked, it was fat-free this, fat-free that. And there were so many things that were wrong with this thinking. And one of those things was that the fat was replaced with sugar and more salt and other artificial flavors just to improve the taste because the fat had been taken out. And so generally we started eating more sugar, more crappy artificial ingredients in our food. We would see a packet of biscuits on the shelf or a packet of cookies if you come from America here. And you know, you'd see, fat-free over the biscuit packet. And so you think, oh, well, they must be okay, right? You know, they must be fine. There's no fat in these. These must be fine for me. Wrong. So wrong. You know, in fact, you know, that sugar, if you're taking in loads of sugar that your body can't process, it doesn't need, you're actually going to turn that sugar into fat on your body. So, you know, not to mention all of that sugar that's then causing inflammation in your body, blood sugar problems, diabetes, gut health issues, poor brain functioning, and well, just so much more. And the thing was that all fat during this time was seen as bad. And that's really what caused the damage. Some fats are not only really good for you, but some fats are absolutely essential to include in your diet. And this is to keep you healthy. So the craze of cutting out fat led to so much ill health and obesity. It was a real problem and has continued to be a real problem since then. And the thing is that all of us women who are entering menopause now, we grew up with that fat-free mindset. We grew up thinking that fat is bad for us. And you know, when we have mindsets that are established when we're young, it's really hard to let them go because they become an ingrained belief. And so our ingrained beliefs that were set when we were teenagers really was fat equals bad. And you know, we saw that as a truth. You know, that was our ingrained belief that fat is bad. And we saw that as a truth. We grew up with it for many years, seeing it in front of our eyes all the time. And so we then were right. We made these assumptions and they were unfortunately wrong. And unfortunately, it has affected a lot of women's lives, their health and their well-being from that moment on. You know, and I think that, you know, this happened when we were young, and at that time when we're so conscious about the way we look that we just automatically started reducing the fat in our diets, taking it out altogether in some instances. Now, fat is actually needed to make some hormones, and particularly progesterone and estrogen, which are the hormones that are significantly decreased during menopause. So it's vitally important to be getting some good quality fats in your diet to provide with your body with as much support as you can for it to be able to produce healthy hormones that will function well. And in fact, eating good quality fats every day is one way to naturally balance your hormones during menopause. Yes! So we really need to know, what fat is bad and leads to ill health and what fat is good and actually leads to vibrant health. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about that is how fats can be destroyed very easily by heat, air, and light. Now, the thing is that you can have a healthy oil such as extra virgin olive oil, which when it's heated up can actually become toxic. Yes, if you heat extra virgin olive oil up, it's going to become toxic. Did you know that? And we grew up with throwing this olive oil into frying pans and frying with it on high heats. That's not good. So this is really important for you to know about, and it's often not discussed. Now, once an oil is heated and it starts to smoke, this is at the point that it actually becomes toxic. It actually becomes a free radical that can destroy and damage your cells. Now, all oils have different smoking points. Grapeseed oil actually has a relatively high smoke point of around 420 degrees Fahrenheit. So that means that you can actually use grapeseed oil to heat it up to that temperature, 420 degrees, before it starts to smoke and becomes toxic. So grapeseed oil is a really good oil to cook with for medium to high temperatures. Now, coconut oil is quite hardy, and I actually use coconut oil to cook with a lot. Coconut oil smokes around 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and avocado oil as well actually is about the same. So both coconut oil and avocado oil can be good oils to cook with up to a medium heat. Okay, you don't want to take them over 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So those are good ones to think about. Grapeseed oil, this is for cooking with. Grapeseed oil, coconut oil, and avocado oil. But don't take them over medium heat. And grapeseed oil can just go a little bit higher to 420 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so if you want to do some more sort of medium high heat cooking, grapeseed oil is the one for you. Now, there are some delicate oils which shouldn't be heated up at all. Never, never, never. Heat up sesame oil, walnut oil, flaxseed oil, and hemp oil. These oils have very, very low smoke points. So only use these as a dressing or use them in cold food recipes, or you can actually pour these oils over warm food that's already been cooked. That's fine. And extra virgin olive oil has a low smoking point too, so I would really avoid using it to cook with unless you use it on a very low heat. I usually pour extra virgin olive oil over my food once it's been cooked. I did that last night, in fact, on some pasta. Now, as I said, it's not only heat that can damage the oil, but air and light can do it too. So this is why you need to buy your oils in dark green bottles. So you go to the supermarket and you see some olive oil bottles, for example, that are in green bottles and some that are in clear glass bottles. Now, the green bottles actually protect the oil from light pollution, and that helps to keep your oil fresher for longer. It stops it going rancid, basically. So never buy any of these oils in clear glass bottles, as it's really likely that the oil within it could already be rancid, or at the very least it will have significantly reduced the health properties contained with it, because all of those beautiful antioxidants that are in these wonderful oils you're buying and using really just start being degraded as soon as light, heat, or air gets into them. So imagine those clear glass bottles. You're just seeing them on the shelf in the supermarket, but they've gone through the production, which of course, even during producing the oils, they've been exposed to certainly light and air. And if you get a cold pressed extra virgin olive oil, that's why, by the way, you want it cold pressed, because that preserves all of its antioxidants and all of its beautiful properties, and it's not going rancid by heating it up and making it a toxic substance. So always buy cold pressed extra virgin olive oil, and always buy them in the dark green glasses. Or you can actually get some, I've seen some olive oils in tins actually, which is great because then you don't get any light entering those at all. So never buy your oils in clear glass bottles, because not only from, like I say, from the point of manufacturing the oil, then they go into the distribution process. You don't know how they've been stored, how much light they've been exposed to, all the way to when they're on the supermarket shelves. How long have they been exposed to light in the supermarket? Quite a lot, I should imagine. And sometimes, I pick up some of these olive oils on the shelf and I can feel that they're actually quite warm, underneath the lights in the supermarket. So just be aware of those things. And then, of course, once you open a bottle of oil, use it up within 6 months, because by opening it, you're exposing it to the air and then the degradation process begins. So the thing to do is to buy oil in small bottles so that you use it up quickly. And as I say, only buy them in dark green bottles or tin bottles where the light can't get in at all. And make sure that you store them in a cool, dark place too. Okay, so after that's been said, let's move on to the different types of fats that there are. Now, firstly, you will have heard about saturated fats, and I bet you think that saturated fats are bad for you, don't you? Well, not all saturated fats are. In fact, our cell membranes are made up of saturated fats, so they're not all bad, and we do need some in our diet. Now, saturated fats are actually solid at room temperature. So these are things like butter and lard and coconut oil. Now, your body stores saturated fat so it can use it as an energy source. So we do definitely need some in our diet, but the key is really, how much and what sources. For example, eating too much red meat and cheese, which contains a lot of saturated fat, can actually lead to inflammation in the body. Now, inflammation is one of the leading causes of many chronic diseases. So please go very easy on these food sources. However, saturated fat from coconut oil has got many health benefits, but obviously not if you're going to decide to eat half a jar of coconut oil a day. That wouldn't be so good for you. I would probably say, up to a tablespoon a day of coconut oil is probably good. And actually, I use coconut oil on, in replacement for butter. Actually, I use it on my toast if I'm going to have toast. And the thing is that coconut oil is actually a relatively new product in our modern day diet. So studies are still being conducted on it. And, we're really finding out all sorts of new data on how coconut oil can benefit our health. And it seems that coconut oil can, in fact, actually boost the good fats in your body. It can actually help you to lose weight. Yay! Because it helps you to keep feeling fuller for longer, and it can actually increase your metabolism as well. Plus, coconut oil is also antimicrobial, antiviral, and it has some wonderful antioxidant properties to it too. Plus, it's anti-inflammatory as well. And plus, actually, this is really interesting. There've been some fascinating studies showing that coconut oil can possibly prevent against Alzheimer's disease as well. So, like I said, it's the amount that's important. So if you think, oh, Alzheimer's disease, that runs in my family, I'm going to eat loads and loads and loads of coconut oil, that's when it doesn't start working so well for you, okay? So sometimes, yes, you can have too much of a good thing. So I would say, like I said, probably about up to a tablespoon of coconut oil a day is probably a really good amount to think about having in your diet. Now, as I said, coconut oil is really good to cook with up to a medium heat, and this is what I use all the time. And in fact, all saturated fats in general, the fats that are solid at room temperature, are really good to cook with because these oils are more stable, more hardy when they're actually heated, so they have higher smoke points. Okay, let's move on to trans fats. Now, these are otherwise known as trans fatty acids. Now, there are two different types of trans fatty acids. There are artificially processed trans fats and natural trans fats. The artificially processed ones are actually created by adding hydrogen to delicate liquid oils in order to make the oils harder and more shelf stable. Now, these are sometimes also referred to as hydrogenated oils. So if you look on the back of any packets of processed food, you may well see hydrogenated oils written on there. You'll find them a lot in fried food, in frozen pizzas and donuts and crackers and margarine and vegetable spreads that spread like soft butter. Because basically what's happening is here, they're making the liquid oils such as, olive oil and flax oil into a harder substance so that they're more shelf stable, but so that you can also spread them like butter on your toast. Okay, so all of those margarines and things that were once touted as being really healthy for you, if they've got trans fats in them, they are most definitely not. These trans fats are really, really bad for you. Stay away from them as much as you possibly can, because what they do is that they raise your LDL, low density lipoprotein, that stands for, it's your bad fats, in other words. It will raise your bad fats and it will lower your good fats. Now, your good fats are known as HDL, the high density lipoproteins. And those trans fats are actually linked to heart disease, strokes, and many other serious health issues. And one thing I do want to point out is not to be fooled if you look on a side of a margarine tub and it says it has no trans fats on the label. Unfortunately, they still can contain trans fats. They're just at a very low level. So once they reach a certain level, the company doesn't actually have to say that they're in the product because they're at a low level. But of course, if you eat it regularly enough and you're eating enough of it, you're certainly going to be having quite a lot of these trans fats in your diets without even realizing it. So just be careful of that. Now, like I said, there are also these natural trans fats, and these natural trans fats are found in meat and dairy. And they're certainly nowhere near as damaging as the processed trans fats because their chemical structure is slightly different and they therefore have a different effect on the body. Now, there are conflicting ideas about whether these natural trans fats are good for you or not. But certainly what we do know is that eating too much meat and dairy can increase your risk of heart disease. And as I said earlier, your risk of heart disease goes up when you enter menopause anyway. So in my view, it's best to keep your consumption of these natural trans fats at a moderate to low level. Okay. So trans fats, stay away from them as much as you possibly can. Okay, let's move on to unsaturated fats. Now, unsaturated fats are generally liquid at room temperature, and there are two types of unsaturated fats, monounsaturated and polyunsaturated. Now, Your mono unsaturated fats are things like olive oil, olives, sesame oil, and avocado. I love avocado. And actually, avocado contains some saturated fat, so that's a really good for you saturated fat. Also, pumpkin seeds and sesame seeds contain monounsaturated fats as well. And these fats can actually help prevent cardiovascular disease. They reduce your LDL, your bad fats, and they increase your HDL, your good fats. They reduce inflammation, which is a real biggie because inflammation is the cause of many diseases. So if you have rheumatoid arthritis or you have any other inflammatory disease such as an autoimmune disease or inflammatory bowel disease or asthma, then make sure you're getting enough monounsaturated fats in your diet. Let's move on to polyunsaturated fats. Now, polyunsaturated fats are always liquid at room temperature. And these are the oils that are most delicate and are most easily damaged by heat, as I was saying earlier. Now, basically, these polyunsaturated fats are essential fatty acids, which means that your body can't produce them on its own. So you actually need to get them from your diet in order to maintain your health. Now, you've probably heard of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. These are actually polyunsaturated fats. And actually, there are lots of different forms of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. And I won't go into too much detail with that here. I did start writing up notes all about this, and then it got like mega confusing. And I thought, oh my word, I'm going to be giving you so much information here. It will just boggle your mind. And when you're listening to it and you're not reading it with clear headlines and things, you can probably get a little bit confused and overwhelmed with all the information that's coming at you. So I've decided to keep it really simple and actually just focus on the ones that are really important for you to know about here. So omega-6 fatty acids are actually found in a lot of foods. And actually omega-6 are in high amounts in processed and refined oils like sunflower oil and corn oil and soybean oil. You know, these oils are found in a huge amount of processed foods. So much so that generally speaking, we actually have a lot of omega-6 in our diets. In fact, probably too much omega-6 in our diets. You know, it's really not difficult to eat a lot of omega-6, no matter what your diet is. The problem arises when we don't have enough omega-3 in our diet. So our balance of omega-3 and omega-6 is out. You know, too much omega-6 compared to omega-3. So there are different views as to what the best ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is, but it really seems that an absolute ideal would be equal amounts, you know, 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. Which really is near on impossible for people who are following, you know, a normal modern day diet or a standard American diet, the SAD diet. So, you know, a good range has been set somewhere around 4-to-1 or less. So that's 4 omega-6 to 1 omega-3. Now, just to give you an idea, to put this into some type of context for you, the typical Western diet ranges from 10-to-1 and 50-to-1. 10-to-1 and 50-to-1. And we want it to be 4-to-1 or less, especially when we enter menopause. So we most certainly have some big changes to make here. Now, the thing is, you see, once you get too much omega-6 in relation to omega-3, it can actually lead to inflammation in the body. And during menopause, we are far more prone to inflammation. So we definitely need to strongly focus on including more omega-3 fatty acids in our diet. So let's move on to that. Omega-3 essential fatty acids. Okay. Now, as I've said, there are different types of omega-3 essential fatty acids. The most important ones, and the ones that you've probably heard of, are EPA and DHA. Now, EPA and DHA provide the best benefits against inflammatory diseases and heart disease and stroke, as well as providing many other health benefits, such as improving your brain function, which we definitely need help with during menopause. These years when our brain is needing to adjust to using a different type of estrogen, our memory can be affected. And I talked about that on one of my earlier podcasts when I was in the supermarket. I suddenly forgot my PIN number. And I've had loads of those moments. Luckily, they're getting a bit better now because it takes a few years to adjust. Actually, I did record a podcast episode on that, episode number 4, the symptoms of menopause. If you listen to that, then I talk a lot more about how our memory, how our brains are affected during menopause. So EPA and DHA, which are the forms of omega-3, can really help with that. EPA and DHA also help to reduce high blood pressure and improve your bone health. So inflammation, heart disease, stroke, poor brain function such as memory issues, high blood pressure, and bone health, all these things, it's mega important to take preventative measures against when we reach menopause, because we are so more prone to these things. So deficiencies of EPA and DHA can therefore lead to all sorts of health issues, as I've said, as well as anxiety and depression, which can also be heightened during menopause. I know I certainly had a bout of depression, actually, luckily for a short while during perimenopause, and anxiety as well. And certainly if you've got a history of panic attacks, etc., from your past, or high stress from your past, you're probably more likely to experience anxiety during the perimenopause to menopause years. So, taking a good quality EPA and DHA supplement can actually help to treat those things. It can actually help to treat anxiety and depression, not just prevent it. Now, EPA and DHA are found mainly in cold water fish, like sardines and anchovies and mackerel and salmon. However, with our oceans becoming more and more toxic, a lot of fish contains mercury, as well as other loads of horrible toxic substances such as PCBs. And unfortunately, the bigger the fish, the more of these toxins they can hold, because if you think about it, the big fish are actually eating the little fish. So not only have you got the little fish with these toxins in, but they're being consumed by the big fish. So the big fish have all of those toxins plus the ones they're picking up from the ocean as well. And so all of these toxins are actually stored in the fish's fat. And so that is one big reason not to take cod liver oil, as the liver is the organ that actually processes the toxins in the body. And, you would have to actually eat quite a lot of fish, several times a week to get the EPA and DHA you need, which means that you're potentially consuming all of those toxins as well. So I therefore, recommend taking a high quality EPA and DHA supplement that's been tested and cleared of these toxins. And so you may choose to have a fish oil, but I actually have a much better suggestion for you than taking a fish oil. So I'm going to talk to you about that in just a moment. Now, flaxseed oil, ground flax seeds, and walnuts contain omega-3. But they're in a different form than EPA and DHA. So your body has to actually go through a process to break them down until they can become EPA and DHA. Now, the trouble is with this, that only a very small amount actually makes the whole conversion journey down to EPA and DHA. It's actually around 2%. Plus, if your diet is high in omega-6, as I've highlighted most people's are, it can actually block this conversion too. So if you're thinking you're getting EPA and DHA from nuts and flaxseed oil and things like that and seeds, then think again, because you're certainly not getting enough. But having said that, they still contain omega-3 oils, and with that comes a powerhouse of vitamins and minerals and antioxidants that can actually prevent your cells from being damaged by oxidation. So nuts and seeds have many wonderful health benefits, such as preventing the development of erratic heart rhythms, arrhythmia, which certainly can happen during menopause. They can help you to balance your blood glucose levels. They're great to eat in the morning, to have a handful of nuts or seeds in the morning, and that will help you to feel satisfied for longer. Plus, they're full of protein and they can help to prevent cravings, and they can actually also help to prevent energy slumps during the day too. So if you get that 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon slump, try having some nuts or seeds in the morning. Plus, nuts or seeds can actually help with weight loss. They can help to improve your cholesterol levels and give you some beautiful glowing skin and healthy hair. So they've got many, many benefits to them. And one thing I do want to say is that Brazil nuts contain over 100% of your RDA of selenium. Now, selenium actually really plays a part in reducing your risk of some cancers. It supports the health of your thyroid gland, which can go totally out of whack during menopause. So it's really good to include selenium in your diet from natural sources, so in your nuts and seeds. Selenium also helps to boost your immune system, and you'll be pleased to know it can help to slow the aging process, reducing those lines and wrinkles, and can also help in the management of asthma as well. So please do keep including nuts and seeds in your diet. Even though they don't break down to that EPA and DHA, they still have a load of wonderful health benefits for you. But I just want to say, actually, just a quick note, not to eat too many Brazil nuts because you could possibly get selenium toxicity from them. They are so high in selenium. Like I say, one Brazil nut can give you over 100% of your RDA of selenium. So you need to just go easy on Brazil nuts. I have about 2 or 3 a day, and that seems to be fine. But I do take breaks from eating them as well. Honestly, 1 Brazil nut a day is fabulous. And if you're having other nuts as well, take days where you don't eat any Brazil nuts for a while. And please be careful to check if you're taking any supplements that contain selenium. Because if you do, I would stay away from Brazil nuts altogether. Or even better, stop taking your selenium supplement and have a Brazil nut a day instead. It's far better to get selenium from natural whole foods that contain a whole load of other wonderful nutrients along with that selenium. Now, as I'm vegan and I want to reduce the amount of fishing that's stripping our oceans bare, and I want to really control as much as possible how many toxins get into my body, I actually take a vegan EPA and DHA supplement that has been made from algae. Now, this is a supplement that's actually, this EPA and DHA supplement I use has actually been grown in a controlled environment. So there are no toxic nasties from the sea with it. But the really important thing that you need to make sure of is that if you're buying an EPA and DHA supplement, whether it's a fish oil or like a vegan or vegetarian source, you need to make sure that you're getting a really good quality oil from a reputable company, because you now know that these oils are very delicate and they can be easily damaged. Plus, you don't want any toxins with it or other nasty preservatives. And sometimes some of the ingredients that some companies put in their supplements is mind-boggling. They're supposed to be healthy, and yet you look at the label and there's all these awful added ingredients, and it just, yeah. And that's usually with the companies that are just out to make money. And they're usually the low-priced ones as well. But don't get me started on that bandwagon. The supplement that I actually take is called Opti3 by Vegetology, and I'm actually going to put a link to it in the show notes for you. I use it because their EPA and DHA is really high. They seem to be a company that really reputable and produce a very high quality oil. Okay, so that will be in the show notes for you. So I want to just give you now a quick summary and really just give you some things to keep in mind, because I know that this can be really rather overwhelming when I'm going through so much information here. So let me just give you these key takeaway points. When we enter menopause, our risk of heart disease goes up. So it's vitally important that we're eating the right fats to lower or even prevent our chances of ever getting heart disease in the first place. Now, one reason why this happens is that during menopause, your LDL, the bad fats, can increase, and your HDL, the good fats, can decrease. And this is due to the fall in estrogen. So it's really important at menopause that we focus on getting some good quality fats in our diet to change that process, that estrogen up-leveling the bad fats and downgrading the good fats. We want to just reverse that process. So having some really good fats in your diet will increase your good fats and lower your bad fats. Okay, now I'm going to give you an example here, an experience, one of my experiences, in fact. Now, my diet is really pretty good it really is very good, and I do most definitely practice what I preach. But about a year or so ago, I had a blood test just to see where my cholesterol levels were at, and my LDL, the bad fats, they came up high. And I remember I was in the doctor's office and my jaw hit the floor. I was astounded. It really shocked me because I have a really great diet. And even though I knew that this could happen in menopause, I thought, how can my LDL be so high? My diet is really good. So it just goes to show that this can happen really easily, even if, like me, you have a really good diet. So to reverse it, I increased my dosage of EPA and DHA, and that's where I found this vegan supplement that I'm recommending to you, because it has really high levels of EPA and DHA in it. So I found that supplement, so I'm sharing that with you, helping you to not have to run around trying to find a good supplement. That probably took me several weeks to find that. So that takes that hassle off you. I also increased my exercise. And I increased my intake of avocados, which was a really great excuse for me because I absolutely love them. So I have them several times a week. I poured a bit more olive oil on my food, and I started taking spirulina, which can actually really help to lower your LDL levels too. But a few other tips for you if you're wanting to naturally decrease your bad fats in your body is by increasing your intake of soluble fiber. So you can have oats in the morning with some fruit and nuts. That's what I tend to do. That's a great way to just a very simple, very natural way that you can do to start lowering those bad fats in your body. And psyllium is also great at reducing the bad fats too. You'll probably get hold of the psyllium husks. Now, fats actually also help your body to absorb vitamins A, D, E, and K, which are really important for the health of your bones. And looking after the health of your bones once you reach menopause is something you need to be really aware of, because this will help you to reduce your chances of osteoporosis, which of course increases during menopause. The other thing to remember is that when cooking with oils, don't let those oils smoke. And don't ever, ever, ever cook with delicate oils such as sesame oil, walnut oil, flaxseed oil, or hemp oil. And like I said, coconut oil is my favorite to cook with on a medium heat. Now, if you take one thing away from this podcast, then please take action in your life. Please don't just listen to this podcast and forget about it. Take action today by deciding to add some healthy fats into your diet. Eat avocado regularly. Have a handful of raw nuts every day, such as almonds and walnuts and Brazil nuts. But of course, remember not to have too many Brazil nuts. You certainly don't want a whole packet of Brazil nuts each day. Otherwise, you might be at risk of having too much selenium, as I said earlier. Other great nuts are things like macadamias and hazelnuts and seeds such as sunflower seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, and chia seeds are all fantastic for you. And make sure that your nuts and seeds are raw. You don't want nuts and seeds that are roasted because if you think about it, they've been heated up, which is going to damage those delicate oils. And also make sure that the nuts that you choose aren't covered in unhealthy additives such as sugar and other nasty ingredients. So if you're buying nuts in a packet, look on the back and check the ingredients that's included in them. And if you love to eat flax seeds, if you include flax seeds or flaxseed meal in your diet, you need to know that you must never buy ground flax meal, flax seeds that have already been ground up, because it's very likely that those beautiful, delicate oils will be damaged because in the grinding up process, they've probably been exposed to some heat to grind them up in the first place. And then as soon as they're ground up, of course, those beautiful oils contained within the seeds are exposed to oxygen. And of course, then they start to become rancid and those oils start to become damaged. And then that's when you're eating something that's toxic. So if you like flax seeds in your diet, they are absolutely amazing. Then just buy the flax seeds whole, keep them in a cool, dark place with your oils and your nuts. And I always keep my nuts in the fridge as well. And when you're about to use your flax seeds, grind them up immediately in your blender for a couple of seconds and then add them to your food that you're having. But of course, don't heat them up, okay? Sprinkle them on your food afterwards. Remember to take a good quality EPA and DHA supplement because unless you're eating tons of fish, you won't be getting the required amount from your food. And as I said, I'll put a link in the show notes for the one that I take. And if you're really low in energy, did you know that it could be because you're not actually having enough good quality fats in your diet? So make a point of adding some in your diet today and let me know how you feel in a month's time, will you? Eating nuts and seeds at breakfast and at lunch is a great way to include them in your diet, and it will actually help with your energy levels for the rest of your day. For example, you may decide that you could eat some nuts for breakfast and some seeds for lunch. That would be a great way of doing it, and that will just balance your blood glucose levels, and it will hopefully help you with those energy slumps that you're getting. Now, saying that, this may just be, one piece of the jigsaw puzzle. You may need other things that you need to take into consideration as well, but this is just one little hint here for you to look at. And remember, if you want to lose weight, adding nuts and seeds to your diet could actually help, and certainly some coconut oil as well. And inflammation and memory issues are two major factors that affect us during menopause. So eating some really good fats can help improve your memory and improve your general brain function and reduce inflammation in your body. So that's really good news. And eating good fats can actually help you to balance your hormones naturally. Yay! So if you're having some awful menopausal symptoms, please make sure you include some in your diet. Try it for a month. Let me know how you're getting on. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, so I don't want to overwhelm you with any more information here. I've given you enough to think about. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a link in the show notes for you about something else you need to be aware of when including raw nuts and seeds in your diet. And that's something called phytic acid. Now, I wrote a blog on this a few years ago, so this is the link that I'm going to include in the show notes for you. In a nutshell, soaking and sprouting your nuts and your seeds makes them even more healthy. It really unlocks more of the beautiful nutrients within the nut or seed, and it actually helps with you digesting them too. Plus, taking a really good quality digestive enzyme supplement when you eat your nuts and seeds will help you to absorb all of the wonderful goodness from them as well. So that's definitely going to be another podcast of mine, digestive enzymes, I think, and the benefits of those and why we need them. So keep your eyes out for that podcast, which I will record soon. Okay, that's it, girlies. Go and embrace your inner squirrel. Go and forage for your nuts and seeds and enjoy them to the fullest. To find out more about how you can live a soulful menopause, please visit soulfulmenopause.com. I'm really looking forward to being with you again soon. Bye for now.